So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives. The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives. The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives. The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives. The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives. The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward. So tonight, this is the launch of the Meet Magic Digital Impact Card. This is a movement of people all around the world that are giving their time to give back to society. And they do it in such a simple way that it's ridiculous. We've created a platform for executives and decision makers to log on, choose a charity that they want to support, and make a difference just through a very, very simple meeting.
So we're going to launch with a $30,000 donation to the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And as you can see, it's not a check, it's a card.
With just one meeting, you will change lives.
Meetings that we have. I have thousands of meetings, literally.
And at the end of a 45-minute meeting,
I've helped sick kids at the Starlights Children's Hospital, which is my chosen charity.
When you're first meeting someone, you're trying to build a connection, and with Meetings for Good, you just find the connections automatically there.
And when I actually think about what Meet Magic does and the opportunity to spend some time supporting the community of our vendors, but also being able to give back.
And when the opportunity presented itself to join Meet Magic, I jumped at it.
But these ones are different, and the reason they're different is because the vendor wants to meet with you and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
All of those meetings blur into one, but Meeting for Good is memorable.
It absolutely makes sense to do this, and I definitely recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic.
Yes, indeed. I would also recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday. It's Hump Day here in Australia. For those that don't know what Hump Day is, getting over the hump. I'm Carl. I'm the founder of Meet Magic, which is a purpose-driven platform that lets decision makers pay it forward. And they do it by networking with some of the world's best tech companies to gain insights and understand what's happening out there. I think you probably know as well as I do, in today's world, solving any real challenge requires leveraging the right technology. I think most executives today are craving purpose and are craving trust. They're not craving pushy sales tactics and spammy emails, and so that's why we created Meet Magic. It's sort of, we're looking for chief meeting officers, which is probably I'm probably the first one to do this. So it's the decision makers and the vendors that can find each other and share the latest tech, the latest trends. They can filter out all of the noise in a creative way and also raise money for charity. We've probably done almost $2 million that we've distributed to charity so far. So it's kind of cool. So it's all about control in the meetings. It's about relevance, having relevant meetings, but it's about also making an impact. And for those that don't know, I'm from Nottingham, where Robin Hood comes from. Everyone knows who Robin Hood is. And Sir William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army. So we always know what to do with other people's money. Anyway, so this is it. This is the Magic Room podcast. This is where we showcase purpose-driven leaders and change makers. I mean, everyone's got a story. I'm just here to share theirs. It's really about them. It's not about anything other than that. So in each episode, we're going to dive a little bit into what inspired them growing up and who their mentors were, a little bit about what their vision is for the future. And today, I'm very lucky because we have Brinkman from the Dale Carnegie training course with us. Hello, Catherine.
Good morning to you. I'm still on Tuesday.
Oh, shit. Yes, you are.
It's okay, though. I was like, wait a minute. It's such a time difference.
It's mental. It is literally stupid. I get people booking podcasts with me at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And so I get up and my brain's not even switched on.
You know, yes. So thank you for, it's kind of early for you, right? 8-ish?
Yeah, eight's okay. I mean, we were going to do this yesterday, but that was 7. So that was, I mean, it's okay. 7's okay. I don't mind that. I really don't mind that early in the morning. I've done a couple of 4 a.m.s. That's kind of weird.
That's early.
But it's kind of stupid too, because I think, have you seen these things called chronotypes?
Yes.
Right. So you know that the best time to have sex, the best time to be creative, the best time to be right. So you're either a bear, a wolf, a tiger, a lion, or a dolphin. So the dolphins are the modern day insomniacs. I think the bears are just lazy. Yeah.
Bears are lazy.
The bears are just lazy, and I'm a lion, so I go to bed early and wake up and eat and mate before the sun comes up.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not.
That
really
is early for you then.
Yeah, so I'm more creative. This is my creative time between 8 a.m. I think and midday. Anything after 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my brain starts to peter out a bit. So I don't make decisions after then.
That's unfortunately my creative time is like 10 p.m. to like 1 a.m.
Oh man.
I'm trying to train myself. It's not working very well though.
Yeah, you can't change it. And this is why kids fall asleep in class, by the way. This is why when kids go when they fall asleep at like 9 o'clock in the morning, it's because they're not in sync with their chronotype.
No, I
Anyway,
actually track it, but yes, okay.
so Catherine, who are you? Where'd you come from? So we've met once before, and the energy was just so cool. We had to do this podcast. So why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Sure. My name's Catherine Brinkman. I am from California originally, now living and splitting time between Columbus, Ohio, and New York City. I've been with Carnegie, gosh, longer than I care to admit, a very long time. And I am someone that just really believes in giving back. So we connected over LinkedIn, and I was like, what is this thing? This meat magic. And now we're here. So now we're talking.
It's really cool. And I remember when Dale Carnegie's been around since I was a kid. I'm 54, for God's sake. And I've known Dale Carnegie forever. Tell us a little bit about them, what they're all about.
Yeah, I mean, started in 1912 in New York City, so we have over 100 years of experience. Really started with Dale Carnegie working with salespeople, and there was kind of two camps, right? There's either people that really liked talking about their product and they wanted to help people, but then you got to that pricing part, and they didn't have a lot of confidence to actually go in and ask for the final sale part. Or there were the people that were very money motivated and I want to sell you something. And it wasn't about the person that they were talking to. It was more about, let me push this thing on you. So for those folks, it was more about how do you just slow down, communicate the value. So then it's actually a consultative process rather than I'm just pushing a widget here, just go buy this. And then it's just evolved. I mean, How to Win Friends and Influence People
My
sold,
God.
right?
The Bible.
It is sold the most copies of any book next to the Bible. It was written in 1936. It's still, someone will mention it and it'll all of a sudden like pop to the top of the New York Times bestsellers list. So it's definitely tried and true. And the way he wrote that is he just interviewed famous people for the time and just said, what makes you stand out and successful? And from that, there's 30 different human relations principles. And it's really, those relationship principles are like one person's story. So there's 30 people and there's 30 different stories, and he's just distilled it down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. How's the market changed? Because some of the things that we see in Meat Magic is that obviously the salespeople's approaches are very, very different. We see obviously the ones that are successful and the ones that are not, and we can see why as well, because we can see the ones that go in there pushing a product is kind of crazy, and the ones that just go and have a conversation tend to get ahead. But there seems to be this shift in the buyer journey, and so 5 or 6 years, maybe a bit longer, probably 10 years ago, you didn't really have the internet as much or as much products online, and so your job as a salesperson was to go in and educate the C-suite or whatever. Today they do it all themselves, and so your job really is to build trust. And are you seeing much of that?
A lot of that. And I think the biggest change post-COVID has been that it has to be customized. It has to be customized. So it goes from copying, if you're working with someone, copying their branding colors, not the Dale Carnegie branding colors, their branding colors in that content that we're delivering, if it's online or if it's a paper manual, just having that, their quotes, their context. You had the values and the mission, and that's kind of like, okay, 1980s. Now it's more about, well, my team has this. How can you incorporate this particular slogan? It's just hyper customized.
Is it getting harder because of all this AI? Because we're hearing execs are just so over targeted now. It's like they don't answer their phone, they don't answer their email, they don't answer their text, WhatsApp. I mean, how do you get hold of people now? How do you train them to do that?
AI is, so you're talking to someone that did take a hiatus and actually sold software, took a hiatus from Carnegie, sold software, and I sold AI, robotic process automation, and machine learning way back in 2017. So it wasn't just ChatGPT. Has it gotten, obviously it's gotten more challenging to get in touch with people. And there's a few things that I think can help when it comes to AI, such as really making sure that you customize. It's a lot easier to customize stuff because I can just say, give me a template, go to this website. Can you please make this germane for this client? Take their vision, and I just prompt, what do I want it to include? And then it just spits it out. And I can say, make this sound like it's more for a human resource person. Make this sound like it's more for a salesperson. And it will shift it. So that's gotten a lot easier. To your point, the challenge is, how do you get them? So there's a few things. One is LinkedIn is like my best friend. When you look at marketing and these blanket emails, I think it's like a 1% open rate at this point.
Yeah.
It's like almost a waste of time. 17% open rate if you DM somebody on LinkedIn. That's not bad. And then there is, I call it, the stalking, where how important are they? Do I want to go ahead and maybe text message them? Like a small little statement like, hey, I noticed this is what your company is working on. We might be able to help. Can we talk? And that's like just a super short text. So I'm getting a little more savvy with the AI though. There's a few different softwares where you can like actually create a song. So I might take something that I know about the organization. Let's say I know employee engagement is a challenge. I might take that theme, incorporate some information from the history of that organization, what they're famous for, and then go drop it into this song generator, and it will write a song about how Dale Carnegie can help, and I'll
So
send that.
what? We get drunk. So what? We smoke weed.
Maybe not that. Depending on if I'm in California or a legalization state here in the States, maybe. But it really, you can tailor it specifically. You can give it the genre. Obviously, I get excited about the AI. So yeah, there's just, to your point, there's so much content. There's so much stuff. There's someone that actually cold emailed me today, and it literally was like very short and brief. She said, it was like, here's what I can do. Do you want to see a PowerPoint? Yes or no? And I was like, huh, that's worth it. That's so short. That's so sweet. She's not, boom, got it. And was like, okay, I kind of like this.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some changes need to happen. I often think about human behavior, and I think about, I met so one of my chief evangelist or shareholder, his name's Rory Sutherland. He's the head of behavioral science practice for Ogilvy in the UK. And he was telling me about this company in the UK, and they're doing £1 million in revenue now. But what they do is they do handwritten notes. And so,
if I have one here,
it's really interesting because the psychology of when you receive a handwritten note that's been handwritten and posted with a stamp on it, you go, oh, someone's actually taken the time to actually write something to me. It must be important. So the psychology is that you're actually listening. You're actually prepared to open it and have a look. The way they do it is very cool. So what she's got is 500. What's that?
That's a little note that I write. These are my note cards on my desk. To your point.
She's got all of these stay-at-home mums, people with disabilities, people that can't really go and work in the factory or go and work outside. And so the one thing that they've all got in common is they've all got good handwriting. And so she's built this platform where Dale Carnegie, uploads a list of 1,000 companies that you want to go and target. You've got their email, you got their address and their thing, and they basically handwrite every single one of those notes.
Wow.
Put them in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it. Now, to take it a step further, if you think about your cost of acquisition and how much money it costs you to get a new customer, well, why don't you just stick it in a FedEx bag? Because when did you ever throw a FedEx bag away without opening it? Never. It's 100% open rate, and it might cost you $10 per bag, but that's 100% open rate. And so there's some very clever things happening. But I think there's a shift towards, obviously, I don't want to use the word authenticity, but back to the old days where you'd have to go and write something is kind of cool. I kind of like that idea. I think it's really quite unique.
And I've taken it a step further because I've been doing this, my team's been doing this, where I don't know if that person is actually on site. So I actually will mail the How to Win Friends and Influence People book. So I put a little post-it note, if this person's not on site, and you don't think that they would actually get it, please read this book. It's
Mm.
your gift. So then they're like, who is this person that
Yeah.
like it's supposed to be intended for so and so, but as somebody in the mailroom or whomever, I get the book, cool. And then I might tell somebody else, hey, have you heard about this organization?
I want to get into to what drove you growing up, as a kid to get into the career that you're in now. But I can't help but thinking you're in LA. You're talking about influencing people. And I'm thinking about Snoop Dogg of all places, of all people. And I'm thinking, how the hell did this guy? I mean, he's probably one of the most loved hip hop artists on the planet. Everybody loves Snoop. Nobody doesn't like Snoop. Yet he said some of the most offensive things to people, about derogatory things about women and whatever. And I can't help but thinking about your book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He's bucked the trend like massively.
Yeah.
I remember that he was being interviewed by this woman, and she was saying something like, all the things that you used to say back in the day, and now with all the Me Too movement and all this other stuff, do you regret anything you said? And he goes, "Nah, I'm old." He's like, but he's
authentic though. He's authentic. He's so genuine in it. And he's from LBC. I mean, come on. It's kind of like that was the culture he grew up in. So you can't.
Yeah. But he's bucked the trend of how to win friends and influence people. It's kind of crazy. And I kind of think if anybody else tried to do what he did, you'd probably get shut down. But
time to change a little.
Tell us about your inspirations growing up, because I mean, have you always been in sales?
The running joke in the family is yes. So I grew up in Silicon Valley, and I went to a private school, very preschool through first. And in first grade, there was a fundraiser to sell gift wrapping paper, and the school was pre-K all the way through 8th grade. And I remember going home to my parents and saying, hey, I want to use your phone book. This is in the olden days when you had a phone book. And I want to call our friends and family and sell them wrapping paper. And my parents were like, what? And it was an Episcopalian day school. We had a sister school in Ethiopia. And I was like, well, I want to help these kids get the books that they need. So they sat me down and they said, okay, if you want to do this, we're okay, but you have to have a script. You have to know what you're going to say. So let's practice. And then the whole sales, I was like, oh, this is really easy. You just call people and you ask for their money. This is great. And it ends up that I actually sold the most gift wrapping paper in the entire school as a 6-year-old or 7, however old you are in first grade. But it was just like, oh, these people need help. If you donate, they get these books, you get gift wrapping paper. At the time, I didn't quite understand the pricing of the gift wrapping paper. And it was a win-win. And it really, that's kind of my biggest inspiration, is if I see somebody that needs something, it's like, cool, how do we fundraise for it?
Yeah.
So you get it.
Now, you mentioned something before, it just jogged my memory. You're from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But I remember the last time we spoke, you told me you were in Silicon Valley before there was any silicon.
Back when it was farmland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, it was farmland, Oracle.
Literally farmland.
Literally farmland. It would, some parts where Google's campus is now, it was a giant dump, literally, no joke. Where Oracle was before they moved, it was a marine park.
Wow.
So now it's changed drastically. But if you go over near Lamb Research, which is near, I'm trying to think, Newark, California, I believe, when you go to the parking lot, you can still see cows. Someone has not given up their land, and there's still a very small farm with cows.
Well, Mark Andreessen hasn't worked out how to put them on a SaaS product yet. Or Y Combinator hasn't worked out. How do we fucking monetize this? So, was there any one particular person that inspired you growing up? Was there anybody that you looked up to? I normally have tech leaders on this thing, and they. Well, it's kind of funny because every time we have a tech conversation, I say, okay, so what inspired you growing up? And they go, oh, well, I was watching Dr. Spock growing up as a kid in Star Trek. Star Trek literally spawned a whole generation of tech leaders, which I don't even think people actually understand that, but it literally did. Was there anything in your world that made you wanted to go down the path that you went down?
I don't think I'm the in the box person.
Yeah.
I would be reading different finance newspapers and reading about CEOs and business
Mm.
from the time I was, could read. My dad taught me how to trade stocks when I was in middle school. So,
Oh.
granted, I couldn't do my own trades, but I would paper trade and then he would actually trade for me what I wanted. And then it's just, again, I think growing up in Silicon Valley, there's so many business people. The
Mm.
mindset though is always, okay, cool. We're making this. How are we making the world better? How are we helping other people be better? And so I think just watching people around me, there wasn't like one person. There was just different people in my community that I saw that were hyper successful,
Yeah.
and they were constantly donating time, sponsoring different events. And that was just like, I was like, oh, you're supposed to do that. It's normal. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't until I left, I realized, oh, that's not normal.
No, but I think by osmosis, you've almost picked up some amazing skills, right? This is the thing. I often think about kids that have grown up in a really privileged background that have really no experience out there, but because of their family upbringing, they've basically they understand money really, really well and business really, really well because they sat and listened to mum and dad and the family around the dinner table. Whereas someone that's not had that same sort of upbringing don't get to experience that, and so there's just very different by osmosis. You just get very, very different skills.
Yeah.
You can understand money and not understand money depending on your household.
And it was very clear in a joking way. My parents always said, no, this is our money. You have to go make your own money. And as I got older, my dad said, he's like, you better get a good job because you're going to be very expensive. So it was always, you have to go make your own money. You don't be dependent on anybody else, but you need to be able to do it.
Yeah, whereas you see that's really interesting because go back to the brain and there was at least money. You had there was money in the house. In my house growing up, there was no money, and so we would always get told the phrases like, "What do you think I am? Rich? Rich people are evil. Money doesn't grow on trees." All of these phrases about money that as a kid you grow up and you become that. Your relationship to money really suffers because of the things you've heard as a child growing up, and that for me it took me in my 40s, Catherine, until I finally got to understand this is why I can make money and then burn it all and lose it all, and it's just this cycle of making it and losing it, making it and losing it because of that relationship that I had with money. Kind of crazy. So I think what we see as a child growing up, it really in our formative years really does become who we are as an adult. And unless you break that cycle in your brain, it's just going to keep repeating itself.
And another thing that they said, I guess maybe we should just put my parents as being inspiration.
Yeah.
They made the comment like, don't ever apologize for coming from the background you come from. If you do not help people that you see that need help, then we're going to be upset.
Yes.
And I
Beautiful.
don't think that that's told to a lot of people.
Yeah. Was it anything memorable you can remember? I mean, I remember some of my early days. My dad was a roof tiler. He worked for himself, so he didn't really, he'd go out and do someone's tiles, picks a hole in the roof, and he'd get paid like £500 for it. And so he'd come back and go to the pub and get pissed, and then then he'd come home and fall asleep in front of the fire. Money would fall out of his pocket, and I'd take some off the floor, and that's how I buy my cigarettes for the week and go to school. But yeah, we go do a cross country run around school, stop halfway around, have a cigarette, and then go. Yeah, that was that was our life. But I remember watching him as a kid do. There was two specific moments. One of them when we were in in Nottingham, in my hometown, in this place called Hyson Green, which is a pretty rough neighborhood back there, back in the 80s. And we're in the shopping center, in the shopping supermarket. My dad married a Jamaican lady, so it was a black area. So we felt at home in the black area because Hyson Green was pretty much a black area back there. And so my mum and dad are a black and white couple walking through the shopping supermarket. I'm a young one walking with them. they fill up the supermarket trolley full of food. And my dad had been drinking after work, and he comes out of the supermarket pushing it, and there's a homeless person there, and he gave him the entire trolley of food. And my mum freaked out and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Leave it. He needs it more than us." And we had nothing, but there was something in that moment, I think, that made me realize, even if you've got nothing, you can at least still give something, whether it's your time, your energy, or your love, or a couple of bits of food or whatever. Was there anything in your childhood growing up where you had that sort of thing as well? Because it's like a massive impact on you. I mean, your parents.
Parents are a big impact. And again, I mean, my dad was a probation officer. My mom was an orthopedic nurse. My dad was just very into investing, and I think did very well at it. I do remember we were in San Francisco one day. We were at this restaurant. It was just he and I, and this waiter came over and kept calling my dad Mr. Brinkman. And I'm like, that's weird. And I think I was in middle school or something like that. And I remember being like, that's so weird. Like, how does he know your name? And when we got in the car ride home, I was like, Dad, how did that guy know you? And he was like, oh, he's on my caseload. And I'm like, what? And he explained that restaurant was a place where people that were in reentry programs were learning a trade, and that he would go in and just patron the place. So, and he would tip well. So he would his probation would always come over and like wait on him, obviously, right? So he would come in and kind of see how they were, coach them when they had their next appointment, leave a tip. Whether you're supposed to do that or not, I don't know. My dad's now deceased, so all good. But it literally was like, oh, okay, so you're actually walking the walk. You're not just saying, hey, you have to go join some trade to go through your reentry program as part of your probation. You show up and bring your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids meet who's on your caseload.
There you go.
That is very, very powerful. And it's at that point when I must have been in middle school, because it clicked then, where I was like, oh, they're not just a number to him. They're a person. And he wants us to understand, like, it can all go south real quick.
Really quickly. Yeah. This is very cool. So your dad was a probation officer, which basically means he was helping people not to reoffend, to keep them out of prison or wherever.
Right.
So basically your dad was making society better.
Yes. Yeah.
And making society safer. And that's a big thing at the moment all around the world. We've just partnered with a charity in London called the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And the Raphael Rowe is do you watch Netflix?
Of course.
So there's a show on there called Inside the World's Toughest Prisons.
Yes. Okay. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So Raphael Rowe is the presenter on that. He was locked up in jail for 12 years for a murder he didn't commit. And he came out, and then I flew him over to Australia about a month or so ago, and we become friends. And he presented at our event, and we had and so we're now supporting his foundation in London.
Oh wow!
Which is it's around the word I couldn't even say it the other week. It's called recidivism.
Okay.
And so he's basically about ending recidivism, which is about helping people to not reoffend when they come out of prison. It's what your dad was basically. It's probably the old day version of having a probation officer. Is like, you come out of prison, you got to stay on the straight and narrow, not right. Reoffend. And so that was your dad was would have been one of the people that has made society safer. And that's definitely an influence where you would have had something. But that's a big theme in the UK now. Prison reform. Prison reform is, there's too many people in jail that shouldn't be there, or maybe should be, that they're sort of this close to being let out, and just need to make sure that they stay on the straight and narrow. And right. I've got a bit of a focus on that at the moment.
It's very, in Dale Carnegie, actually, we work with some people that are in reentry. And when you hear the stories of what's happened, it is like a split decision.
Yeah.
And your life is gone for 20 years.
Yeah.
And to your point, then we bring in technology, where I was facilitating a session in January, and I day trade crypto. I have Apple Pay. I was talking about digital currency, and one of the women was like, "Wait, what?" And she kind of, I was like, you just put you'll put your phone down. You have this thing called Apple Pay. You'll put your phone
Mm.
down and you'll click it. She started crying. She's like, there's no paper money anymore. She'd been in for so long. She's never seen an iPhone in real life. So that's where I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I felt horrible because she was freaking out, and a few others were like,
Mm.
"Wait, what? We have our ID on our phone now? I don't understand." And then I later went to a equity conference around digital equity, and something came up in one of the tracks where it was around prison reform, that there had been someone on probation that was deathly afraid of going to a self checkout at a grocery store, because if they couldn't figure out how to use their phone properly and it didn't register, and they ended up really accidentally stealing something, they go back to jail.
Wow.
And that's where I thought, like, okay, cool. We're giving these people devices, we're giving them the stuff, but we're not
Mm.
teaching them how to use it. And
Yeah.
that's really where there's a big disconnect.
Is that that's probably a good segue into your giving back? I mean, you've been involved in doing things with other groups as well, haven't you? How did you get involved with them? What kind of groups were they?
I mean, I've done everything from like dog rescue to working with people that have been trafficked to
Mm.
rehab. It just kind of is, what city am I in? Who do I meet randomly?
Yeah.
So currently in Columbus, I am involved with the Franklin County Digital Equity Committee,
Mm.
where in Columbus, it's the first time I met someone that didn't have an email. This gentleman was a vet and didn't have an email, and I was just like, wait, what? This is real? So that was very shocking. So one
Yeah.
of that's one of the groups I'm working with to see how can we educate, like, we're getting them the devices, how do we teach them how to use it? How do you and then you throw AI in and they're like, wait a minute, a robot's going to do this? Why would I even bother? So that's something. And then also just in Columbus again, um there's a lot of dark side of what people don't realize in the US that comes through the state of Ohio. So there's a lot of trafficking, both human and drug. So it's
Mm.
really working more with some of those coalitions. And again, I've only been here a year, so I'm just starting to get more involved. But really looking at what is it that we need to educate the public on so they understand what's trafficking of a
Mm.
human versus, okay, that's just kind of weird. That's a weird dynamic.
There's a
So
lot. There's a lot of that going on. I mean, my sister in the UK is involved in advising government on the various different things that are happening with trafficking, and it's pretty scary stuff.
and I'm still involved in California. There's an organization called I-5 Network where it's
Yeah.
all about working with survivors of trafficking. And with Carnegie, we work with them for presentations, training, and how do they tell their story. A lot of them either are involved in a nonprofit or they have their own nonprofit.
Yeah.
So they are working on educating other people. How do you come forward? How do you get out of the situation you're in? And then unfortunately, like, how do you get out and then not get killed?
Yeah. It's
So
yeah.
it's there's
We
a
don't
lot.
realize that.
We went dark there for a second, but it's a fact. It's a reality. So I think that working with animals and people, granted, I don't know where you're at with that. Sometimes it's like, why are you bothering saving a dog? What are you talking about when there's
No,
people? But
every life is a life for me. I think whether it's animal or human, for me, it's everyone deserves a chance. You know,
so
I feel guilty crushing cockroaches.
yeah, yeah. So in Ohio, it really is about educating and me learning a little bit more on, because it's different here. It's not
Yeah.
California, it's not New York, and here they're very very good at hiding trafficking. Where I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then also the digital equity piece, I think clicked. Um, During the pandemic, I was in Manhattan, so you're locked down, and I took a
Mm.
fintech class from NYU, and I learned all about digital IDs and digital currency that's in China and India. And I thought, oh, okay, this is going to come here. And I never thought about, what if I don't know how to use it? What if I don't have reception? When you look at folks that are on reservations, they don't have the best reception sometimes.
Yeah, the Elon Musk needs some Starlink, don't they?
So it's really thinking about, okay, how do we help those people, because it's coming fast and it's not slowing down. If anything, it's like picking up speed. So that's really where my focus is how do we get people to understand how to use the tech?
It's really interesting. They say that anything that's invented when you're 0 to 7 years of age is kind of new. Anything that from your 7 to 15 is exciting. Anything from 15 to 35 is like, wow. But anything over 35, it's like, shit, it's against the grain. So I'm 54. So all this AI stuff now, I'm struggling to keep up with it because it's changing so fast. I mean, I get what it is, but I use it a fair bit. But I've come across some crazy technologies that are being developed now. One of them that I came across yesterday was this. From a sales perspective, you'll love this. You know how people don't answer their phone or their text or their email or anymore. Well, now you can just drop a voicemail without it ringing on the phone, and you can tailor make it. So you upload a list to this company, and you can basically upload 10,000 phone numbers, landlines, and mobile phones or cell phones, and you record your own message. You don't put the name in. AI puts the name in. AI goes, "Hi, Catherine. Hi, John. Hi, Mary." And then it reads your message, but it uses your voice. It clones your voice, so it sounds like you. So all of a sudden, you've just dropped 10,000 voicemails on 10,000 people's phones. The good thing about that is you listen to that voicemail when you're ready on your times. It's not like you're getting a cold call and you're being harassed and piss off, leave me alone, I'm too busy, or what is this scam text? I don't trust this. Or it's sort of circumnavigating that prehistorical part of the brain that wants to protect you and stop you from getting scammed, because it's now all you're doing is you're pressing the button and listening to it. What's that? I like that.
That's yeah. I'm gonna have to look into that. I know in California for sure, if you're using an AI voice, you have to disclaim that. I think it might be federal. So, but
Yeah.
I will look into that because that saves a lot of time.
Yeah, it's just I love the fact that this is what's happening at the moment. In fact, I did a bit of research last night on Nvidia and how much money they're spending on building out the data centers, and the shift away from CPU to GPU driven data centers, and how much that's going to cost. I mean, it's $30,000 for a GPU. It's a lot of money, and some companies have got thousands of GPUs in the data center. It's like a lot of money. But the payback period, this is a $600 billion hole that Nvidia have right now, because you can't just spend all that money and not make anything. And all we've got to show for it is a whole load of little toy AI, which is pretty much what it is at the moment. At the moment. Right? It's like gimmicks and stuff. There's nothing really that's really standing out. And then I've just seen this morning, somebody in LA, actually, I think the Altman VC company, I forget the name of the company, but they've just invested in this AI trading company, which is now, you know how you need power to run your AI,
sure,
and get access to those GPUs and those resources. Well, you're either going to have to go and build it yourself, or you can buy it. Well, now there's like a trading company that you can buy in as much as you need it. That's kind of cool, because that's now, I think most startups would live and die based on their cash flow,
right?
And you won't be able to afford to build. GPUs are not going to come down in price for a few years yet, because I don't think the chickens have come home to roost for those big companies yet, the Broadcoms of the world and the Nvidias of the world.
No, I like that because it also affects scalability. That's cool. That's the thing, though, is like, would you have thought about that last year? I wouldn't have.
No, but I think it's going in the same
fast.
It's going in the same cycles as. Do you remember when I'm old enough to understand Enron? I mean,
I look young. I'm not that young, so I'm not that far behind you.
Yeah, well, it's cool. I think it's great that we look this good at this age. I mean, I work hard for this shit, Catherine. It's like,
right? No, I remember Enron. I remember that very, very well.
Yeah, and the bandwidth trading that was meant to come. Do you remember when everyone was talking about undersea cables and excess bandwidth, and we can trade it and arbitrage it? Never happened.
Right.
And then of course Enron came along and the accounting scandal, and all because the swaps in the bandwidth was all bullshit. The creative accounting and
Yeah.
I think here we go again. I think we're going to have the same thing once these AI arbitrage. Someone's going to come up and do a Jack Brinkman, a Sam Bankman-Fried, and they'll go, okay, this one company is selling GPU resources at this price. This one's at this price. Let's do an arbitrage, and all of a sudden you got the same thing happen. Cycles.
That I think is what is alarming, is there's really not a whole heck of a lot of regulation.
Yeah.
And the other area I'm really interested is the ethics around AI. I was in the Valley when, I don't even know, it wasn't that long ago. I was there when the IBM unveiled Watson. Yeah. And then recently IBM just said, oh, hey, we're going to get behind this whole AI ethics thing. And I'm thinking, when I saw that press release, I'm like, okay, it's kind of late, guys. Like, Watson's been here for years.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. I love the fact that I can get another perspective really quickly now. It's not like dropping something into Google. I mean, the whole ChatGPT thing is great because it really gives you a chance to write a shitogram. I mean, I wrote a shitogram yesterday to some companies, thinking I'm just gonna spit it out of my mind as though and then I've just asked ChatGPT to act like a CEO and rewrite it in a professional way.
And so, in theory, going with IBM, like, is that ethical or not? So there's this whole thing. And again, I love IBM. I'm not shitting on them whatsoever. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, wow, finally people have woken up, and I'm glad that it's one of the largest companies in the world that's like, hey, wait a minute, maybe we do need to regulate this and monitor this a little bit, because it can get out of control real quick. But it's fun. It's fun to watch, to your point.
Yeah, and it is. I just love the way it's all going to go. You just play with it, get involved with it, do what you can with it. I want to put it into our platform. We're using a little bit of machine learning at the moment inside the Meet Magic platform, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that would work really well.
I think from a sales perspective, what I'd love to have is the execs and the salespeople find each other using, obviously, the algorithms. That's the idea. It might be that you're an exec on the platform and it says, hey, Catherine, people like you have been meeting with companies like this. And so all of a sudden you get this relevancy score, which just makes the quality of a meeting so much better.
Yes.
But I think the first thing we have to do is reframe what a meeting is, because when you hear that word, you go, oh, leave me alone. I'm too busy. So we've got to somehow reframe. My chief evangelist, this Rory Sutherland, is quite unique in this. He talks about reframing things quite a lot. And he spoke about, do you know, in England, you've got the train that goes from England to France called the Eurostar.
Yes.
Well, people were complaining about this train being too slow, and so all the think tanks got together and decided that spend £5 billion and upgrade the train. Let's make it 10% faster. And so Rory came along and says, well, why would you do that when you can actually just make the experience better, make the journey more enjoyable? And so instead of upgrading the train for £5 billion, you could just literally spend £1 million and put some Wi-Fi on there, put some tables on there so people can work, put some food. Maybe you can spend £1 million and have the world's top models, both male and female, in their underwear, walking up and down the aisle, serving Chateau Petrus French champagne. People would actually want the train to slow down,
right?
Not speed up. So you can reframe the journey and make the experience better. And I think that's what Uber has done with the Uber map. Uber hasn't given us a better taxi service. They're just taking our anxiety away about knowing where the train is, about where the taxi is.
Mm-hmm.
You can see your taxi is stuck at the traffic light, so I'll just go and have another pint at the pub.
It's an experience. I think that's another thing that's changed a lot, where pre-COVID it was like, oh yeah, people want an experience. Now it's like, no, if I don't have an experience, it's not about my money. It's about what's my experience.
Yeah.
And to your point, like when I was living in New York and when I travel there, I rarely will take a taxi because the subway's faster.
Yeah.
And I remember the days pre-COVID. New York's a little dicey sometimes, but I would have my laptop out working on the train on the way into my office because I just was like, "Oh, it's quiet. I'm not bothered. It's faster than taking a taxi. I can still do stuff, and I'm people watching.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same.
I can't
Uh,
people watch when I'm in a car, really."
yeah, I'm totally the same. I absolutely do the same thing. Listen, it's been a beautiful pleasure having you on this again. I want to
Thanks.
try and I try and end these things after about 45 minutes because it's otherwise you just keep going for 2 hours and
We
it
could.
sort of
We could. You're
goes
great
on.
to talk to.
Well, you are too, by the way. It's just easy going. I've had some dead fish. It's really quite interesting. You try and have a conversation, and sometimes it's like, okay, where do we go from here? And you do, it's kind of
Yes.
interesting. But I kind of like to ask these Socratic. I think they're called Socratic questions at the end, and it's just like the first thing that comes into your mind.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There's 3 or 4 of them. Okay. Say something in an Asian language.
Konnichiwa.
Oh, that's easy. Do you respect Kanye West?
No. I have to think about it. No. And the quick answer is no.
Ah, interesting. What was a nickname your first boyfriend gave you?
It's Pinky, because I wear pink a lot.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the last song you sang out loud?
Song I sing out loud. I'd have probably something from Adele.
Ah, you remind me of a bit of an Adele fan, actually.
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah. You look like, yeah, you do. Yeah, I can see you at an Adele concert.
I mean, she has a great voice.
Yeah. Hey, so you're based in New York part of the time as well?
Mhm.
What's it like in there, right, Mike? So I've been thinking I want to spend 3 months in Sydney, 3 months in Singapore, 3 months in London, and then 3 months in New York, and just keep doing that. So I want to stop. Yeah.
New York is back.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, the last few times I've been there, last summer it was starting to come back. The last 3 times I've been there, and I'll be there the last half of this week, it's a blast again.
Is it because it's summer?
I don't think so, because I was there in March and it was better. And that
Right.
was still when it was like cold. I think there's more tourism.
Mm.
I think COVID, for the most part, like that whole scare is gone. And then it's New York.
So all this bullshit that I'm watching on TikTok about people getting punched in the face randomly, is it all rubbish?
I don't think it's rubbish. I think it is happening, but I think if you look at like what is it, like 10 million people that are probably in the island at any given time, you have
Yeah.
maybe like 3 people. So it's just because to your point, that's where I was last summer. I was like, oh, I'm reading all these things. This is horrible. I don't want to go to the city. I'm going to stay in Brooklyn if I go
Yeah.
to New York. And now I'm like, I'm staying in Midtown Manhattan. I mean, do you still see stuff that you're like, I don't want my kids to see this? Of course you do. But it's
Totally.
also New York.
Well, exactly. I live in Potts Point here in Sydney, which is gentrified version of King's Cross, which is prostitutes, drug addicts, alcoholics, people pissing in the streets. It's real. It's the real world. I just spent some time in London, and people say, "Oh, it's dangerous. They're stealing your phones. They're stabbing you." They're not stabbing you. They're gang idiots stabbing each other. It's not
Right.
They're not stabbing random strangers on the street. They're stabbing each other in a gang thing. So, but the vibe I got in London was wow. It's like it was back. It was like the people would standing 10 feet deep at the pub, having a drink, talking, and it was just the vibe was so good that it just made me go, shit, I should go home for a bit and spend a bit of time in the UK, help just to grow the business, and then do the same thing, and then do the same thing in New York.
Definitely come to New York. It's not what it was 2 years ago at all.
Yeah,
It's
right.
definitely better. And I mean, Columbus, Ohio, people think it's so safe. There's people that I know that live in the suburbs of downtown. I live downtown Columbus. They won't come downtown because it's too quote unquote dangerous. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand. I have not seen, it took a year for me to see a needle. Whereas at the height of COVID, I would not wear flip-flops. California kid, haven't gotten rid of the flip-flops. I would not wear flip-flops in Central Park because I was like, ooh, dude, there could be needles anywhere you go. I have 2 dogs, so I would be watching where the dogs are walking. So here in Columbus, I'm like, you guys think it's dangerous? What? It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. This is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
So I think New York is only going up and up. The more tourism that comes in, I hope that you've seen less about violence, because I think that they really have added more police on the street to crack down on it. And that I think is probably the summer stuff.
I think there's I told my daughter this. It was when she was 14. She's 21 now. She's traveling. She's in Europe, doing a Kentucky tour across Europe. I know, but when she was 13, 14, 15, going to the first birthday parties that she was going to, I said to her, look, the way you see the world depends on what you put your video camera on. So your video camera are your eyes, and if you go looking for all the injustices in the world, you're going to find them. If you go looking for all the problems in the world, you're going to find them. So if you walk in, and I painted it in a 14-year-old's language, I said, look, if you go into a party and you see a couple over in the corner and they're kissing and cuddling, the likelihood is you'll probably find that party quite nice and it'll be a good party. But if you go into that party and you focus on the couple in the corner that's having a fight, the likelihood is you'll probably think the party is not so good.
Right.
So it really comes down to what you put your attention on. So just be careful what you choose to look at and what you choose to focus your attention on. It's that simple. If you watch the news, the mainstream media news, 5 hours a week or 1 hour a day, I tell you, your thoughts will be deteriorating before you know it.
I can't tell you how many people I know don't even watch the news anymore because they just are like, I
can't even do it. Cannot do it. I mean, it's just you can find. I think X is so much better for news now. Literally, I think TikTok's so much better for news now. Literally, you get the real stories there, and people call it out if it's bullshit, and that's what we need. It's like I think where mainstream media's finished. It really is.
And when I look at some of the things that have happened the last few weeks, even when you go on X and you go on TikTok, it's like there's so many different points of view from literally people's camera.
Yeah.
That you can't lie anymore because I could see it from the different views, literally.
Exactly.
And then it's also just like you're not sucked in for an hour waiting for that one story you care about if you're watching TV and you have to get through all the other stuff. Where now I'm just going to type in hashtag blah, blah, blah right there.
Catherine, you're a star. Let's catch up again because there's a lot of good stuff going on. I want to stay in touch because coming to New York anyway.
Definitely. And I have to talk to you about a few other things, Carl. I owe you an email.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's I know you've in fact I'm trying to set up so I need a charity in the US to support. We're starting to bring execs on in the US, and so we can't have charities that are just in Australia. So we haven't got a US based charity yet. So I've been tossing up thinking about there's a guy I met called Matt who's got 1.5 million charities on his, I think it's called Grateful Giving. Okay. And you can basically get a digital card that is loaded with cash and then you can nominate a charity to give it to.
Oh, I like that.
It's kind of cool. And I've been thinking about putting that in the platform as well, because in the platform we've got the digital impact card. But the US is not, we haven't started it yet, so I need to pick one to start with. So maybe you can help me with that.
I can't. And we'll talk. We'll definitely talk. My week slows down on Friday. I shouldn't say my week, my month. It's been a crazy month. But we'll definitely talk because I'm interested in everything that you do. It's very important.
And that's my Saturday morning, Catherine.
Well, we're not going to take your Saturday morning. I'm just saying.
I love
I'm slowing down on Friday. When you're already sleeping, I'm finally slowing down. And then next week, there's no travel, which means like I can actually get a lot of stuff done.
I think in the startup world, you don't discern between dates. You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're work days. They're not. They're not. I think when you work for yourself, you're doing.
You work for yourself. Yep.
And I got clients in America. We've got clients in Europe. And so when it's Friday night here, it's still Thursday there. And when it's Saturday morning here, it's still Friday there. And so all my Saturdays are work day anyway, because the West Coast it's
right. I mean,
12 hours of the day left for me to work the West Coast. Why would I not do that?
definitely come to New York.
I will.
Get some shifts on the time zones for yourself.
It's been great to chat.
You too, Carl. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.